What's up, gamers? It's your boy Laser. Gonna go over some M4A1 class setups here for you for Modern Warfare. Got a few to go over with some slight changes that make a big difference in your playstyle. Got Paisley over here with me as well, who's gonna help me out. But let's dive into it and go over these class setups that I've made. So I have 3 different class setups. We'll go through each one of these in the loadout screen, and then we'll go into just shooting some bots in a private match, so you can kind of see what they look like, and I'll talk over, what it feels like, what I'm seeing, and the differences. But our first one's going to be more of like a post-up class, so a really slow play, holding those mounts and stuff. Unfortunately, that's what this game is about a lot of the time, especially in some slower game modes like TDM, where you're sitting in certain areas for a while, maybe setting up a spawn trap, or in search and destroy, where you're watching lanes, covering flanks, watching crosses, that sort of a thing. So this one's going to be supreme accuracy, some good range as well, and then ultimate control here, and very lacking in mobility. You can see all that in the bottom left hand in the stats. Like, that accuracy is way up, mobility is pretty far down in terms of compared to the other 2 classes that we'll cover. But this is the setup. So we're running a barrel, an optic, a stock, an underbarrel, and a rear grip. That stock is going to be, the barrel is going to be the M16 barrel, which does increase damage and bullet velocity and recoil control. It's very similar to the marksman, but you see the marksman has a little bit less of accuracy, range, and control, but more mobility. So for this class, we're attempting to be posted up and watching those crosses, and just trying to be accurate in our kills rather than trying to move around the map a ton, like a submachine gun player or something. Then our optic, I just use that first mini reflex. I've used the Viper as well. It's really just all personal preference. A lot of people using the GI mini reflex. I feel like the vision on that's a little too big, and I'm used to the smaller ones, so I've been sticking to those, especially just that first Cronin mini reflex with the red dot on it. Stock, M16 stock, which is giving you that incredible accuracy, range, and control, and aiming stability here. Some of these other stocks are very much in play. It just depends on the class setup that you want to run, and how you want to play a certain game mode. You'll see some with the SingGuard as we move through the other 2 classes. And then the rear grip with the granulated grip tape, just to get some more stability. Any of these are really okay. It just depends on your playstyle and what you're trying to set up again. And then this M4A1 Foregrip, which is really going to help with our control and accuracy, which is why you see those shoot up here, but does unfortunately destroy the mobility a little bit. But this is very much, again, just a post-up class, just hanging out and waiting for those enemies to come to you, more say, in a slower type of game mode. But I've put these up together, and the ADS speed's a little low and lacking, as you'll see once we move into shooting some bots. But it's very nice, and the stability and control and accuracy is incredible on this type of class setup. Our second one is going to be the one that I've gotten from Parasite, and watching him and seeing some of his tweets and things. So here's the Gunsmith setup with the compensator, the stock M16 again, that Cronin mini reflex, the SingGuard arms invader stock, and then a commando foregrip. So no rear grip on this one. Again, optics totally personal preference. The muzzle with the compensator and the M16. I've also used the Corvus with the compensator or the muzzle brake. You'll see that there's very subtle differences here with the muzzle brake and the compensator. So a little bit more accuracy with the muzzle brake, but less control. And so you're sacrificing little bits and pieces. And again, like you're covered with the Corvus, just a little more mobility, less range, less accuracy, less control, but only very slightly. So, what are you willing to sacrifice a little bit of, or what are you looking for? This class also has the SingGuard arms invader that we touched on in the last class with the M16 stock, but this one gives you a little bit more mobility and doesn't sacrifice a lot of other things too much. So this is, and then the commando foregrip, which gives you recoil aiming stability, and only decreases the mobility slightly. So this is a lot more of a move around the map, you know, set up in different positions as you know, push to different hills in headquarters, or playing some domination, watching different flags, and being a little bit more mobile. This is kind of like your everything class. This has got the range, the accuracy, the control, and doesn't sacrifice that much mobility in terms of the M4A1. So this is what I've been using about 95% of the time, and then 3% is a sub, and then 2% is maybe that post-up class that we covered. So this is very much your everyday M4A1. I've liked this a ton, and I use it a lot, and I definitely highly recommend this. And then setting it up with obviously your perks and lethals and tacticals that you prefer. And there's the perks I usually run in pubs, but in the public private match, we'll probably throw on scavenger or something so that we can have you know, resupplied ammo. But then the last one we want to cover is a respawn. And so this one is super mobile in terms of an M4. It's not going to be incredibly as accurate as a lot of the other ones, and plus we're using some iron sights here. So what we want to accomplish with something with respawn, where we're moving around a ton, and you know, hitting different positions on the map constantly and running into people potentially close quarters, is you want to have an intense ADS speed and mobility, and that no stock is going to be your first item that you probably want to throw on this M4. That's really going to accomplish that and get that ADS timing up. And also too is not having an optic. So running the iron sights on the M4 does increase the ADS time, so it's very helpful. But you know, it's taken me a little bit of time to get used to seeing the iron sights again after, you know, having that red dot on there for so long. It's one of the first items you unlock, so you know, constantly have had that on. But this class is definitely very useful. And this one we're using the Corvus, so you could switch this to the M16 again, but you do sacrifice a little bit more mobility, and so that's but both of them are kind of, you know, hurting the mobility just a little bit. It just depends on which one you want to go with, and if you think that little sliver does make a difference. And then in this one we're using the compensator rather than the muzzle brake to get more control over it. With that no stock and other things, it's a little bit tougher to control, especially at distance. If you're moving too, so you really have to, if you're shooting long range with this one, you really have to stand still, as you'll see. So that's why we're using the compensator here. But and then we also threw a rear grip in that same commando foregrip underbarrel, which is pretty clutch if you're trying to be a little bit more mobile, where we saw the Merc foregrip and stuff, and all those foregrips for if you're trying to post up a little bit more. But let's go ahead and get into some of the just shooting some bots so you can see, and we'll kind of just talk over this as we go. All right, so I took the webcam away just so you can get the full field of vision, but first what we're going to use is this M4 with the this are kind of like post-up class. You'll see ADS speed is incredibly slow. I am just shooting for the first time today, so bear with me a little bit. But you'll see the ADS speed is pretty low on this, but it just doesn't move. Oh, a little off, but like that just doesn't move close range for sure. So we'll get some range shots in here right quick. You see the recoil is very minimal, and it's just easy to control. But look at that, I was holding L trigger the whole time, barely even brought up the gun. So that's what you're going to sacrifice here, is that ADS speed. Really just trying to get people, you know, like cross map, hit some head glitches, and then you know, try to accomplish your goals that way. But like, you know, I'm moving really slow. I feel like I'm carrying an LMG, unfortunately, but it's definitely a beaming class. You can see right there, just I'm hardly doing much to control the recoil, but everything is pretty easy in terms of that. And it's a laser, dude. It just doesn't move. This gun's a beast. It's just all about like, kind of like your play style and what you're trying to accomplish. All right. Ooh. I'm having a little trouble. There we go. There we go. Well, you can see the accuracy on this is insane. But just that ADS time is really, really slow. Boom. You know. Boom. Boom. L trigger. L trigger. See how long it's taking? L trigger. So that's when when I'm saying L trigger, that's when I'm pushing it. L trigger, and that's when it's like coming up, like a good like second and a half almost, maybe a full second. But for what we're wanting to use it for, it's supreme, and that's long range, distance, accuracy, and control. Not this like, you know, up close and personal type stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch to the Parasite loadout, which is with the M16 barrel, the muzzle brake, and the compensator, depending on which one you want to use. This one is also using the Commando foregrip, which is going to give us more mobility. I already feel lighter. My ADS time is super fast. Left trigger, left trigger. Like you see, I say super fast, like compared to what it was. And it still shoots pretty straight. And the recoil control it's very easy to handle. You know, I'm not having to aim at the ground and, you know, really hold down or anything. It's a lot smoother. And then the big thing here is that your mobility is definitely increased to where you're pretty much viable in any game mode and in any map. And so that's why I use this one pretty much 95% of the time. Oh, how do you know die? And it just really doesn't matter what I'm playing. This is definitely the go-to class. So, what's this guy doing? There you go. Jesus. But this is the one that you want to use pretty much all the time, no matter what you're doing, what game mode you're playing. And if you kind of have like a more movable play style, and you know, you're playing objectives, you know, hitting respawns too, game modes, domination, headquarters, hard points if you're playing private matches, and getting those in. But you see the accuracy is pretty nice, and it's just all around really good. That was just bad aim by me. Alright, so now let's move into the respawn. So this one's going to be super quick ADS, very mobile. It feels like you're running with a submachine gun. You know, you're really moving around the map. That ADS speed is insane with this. Left trigger, left trigger. It's almost instantaneous for an M4 in this game. Like it's you know, this no stock Commando underbarrel is like, and some of these other two attachments is like basically having quick draw on an AR in any other game. You know, but what's gonna be sacrificed is the accuracy and control just a little bit. At long range especially, like I said, you kind of need to be not moving once you start shooting long range. Or you see it kind of hops up a little bit. So I was strafing a little bit there, but like if we stay positioned, this guy's up top. If we stay put, it's a little bit easier to handle. And then obviously like your close range gunfights moving around the map with this class setup are easy peasy because of that ADS time. And you know, up close it's super accurate. But again, like, you might struggle with the iron sight a little bit, but it really does help with your ADS speed, especially with the no stock. Like that combo is insane. And then, but it does take a little bit to get used to. Like I said, I'm trying to still even get used to it. And I've been shooting with this class a lot, just to try to see if I could be viable with it. Because the ADS speed is such an advantage. And when people are, especially when a lot of people are using M4s and not running no stock. Like I don't see people trying to accomplish this type of class setup a lot of the times. It's more range and accuracy with the M4, which makes sense. But you know, there are some tweaks that you can make to make this, you know, a little bit more like a submachine gun for your hard point, for your headquarters, whatever it is you want to run. But yeah, I feel like it's just a little bit lacking in the accuracy, but it still beams pretty well long range, and then as long as you can control it, and then you have a good visual with the iron sights. Alright, so just a quick recap of what we went over there. This is our 90% of the time useful M4A1 setup here on the screen, where we were getting a lot more you know, quicker ADS. We're not sacrificing mobility as much, and we're still have a nice increase in accuracy, range, and control. So this is viable for pretty much any game mode, any play style, whether you're posting up, whether you're moving around the map. I think this is a great one for you to use. And then looking at things, if you're a slower player and wanting to post up a little bit more and camp, this is kind of what you want to go for. You're sacrificing a good bit of mobility, but your accuracy and control are heavily increased here. As you saw, it's a beamer, and your long range gunfights are going to be a little bit easier with this type of setup if you're watching those angles. And then last but not least, we had our kind of like run and gun, no stock, you know, increased mobility, but at the sacrifice of accuracy, range, and control. So this is a more of an in-your-face, if you will, for the M4A1, if that's even possible. But very much for a fast play style, maybe right off the spawn, trying to get a flag, trying to get to the first headquarters and set up for your team, and still have a viable long-range gun, unlike, you know, some of the submachine guns maybe. So hope you like that. I hope these setups help you guys out, and thank you guys very much for tuning in, watching the video, and drop a like if you will, and thanks. See you out there in some pubs. Later.